Good morning. Welcome to the CSLDallas Science of Mind class, and we are so excited that we have a new artist on display, Victoria Eaglebear. She has this amazing organic art, and I wanted to buy at least two pieces, especially one in particular the last time we had her displayed, and I have no room in my house. But oh my God, her stuff is gorgeous. So she's going to be with us every week. So if you're in the DFW area and you want to come on a Sunday and check it out and talk with her about her beautiful art, Victoria Eaglebear. Oh my gosh. And so I love sitting in the middle of creativity, which is such a lovely expression of the spirituality that we practice. We say that we co-create our lives, and so many people say, oh, but I'm not creative. And it's not true. We're creating all the time. What we really mean when we say that is we're not artistic. We don't have an artistic talent. My artistic talent is appreciating. That's my artistic talent. I appreciate music and dance and art and all kinds of sculpture and all kinds of things. And yet, the truth is we're all actually creative. And so one of the reasons why we display art is to remind people and ourselves of how actually creative we are, besides to absolutely support people whose endeavor is that type of creativity. So big shout out to Dr. Tracy Brown for being here last week, the last day of December, and a big giant Happy New Year from CSLDallas. I'm Dr. Petra Weldis, and we are finally finishing up this chapter on spirit. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to talk about how long we've been on this chapter. But it's a fabulous chapter. It's the beginning of the threefold nature of this infinite reality that people call God, or that we call the oneness. And spirit is that intangible impulse, the intangible directionality. It's life itself. It is the very essence of that which is impelled to create. But it is prior to creation. So it is no thing, but it is that which moves in, through, and as everything. And so one of the, well, there's many synonyms for this infinite reality, this universal spirit. Love is one of them. And this idea that we've been talking about all weeks, however many weeks and months we've been talking about it. So we're finishing it up with this fabulous little section on the personalness of God. And I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. We talked about how one of the most difficult initiations, or spiritual initiations in New Thought and in the science of mind, the science of consciousness, is the release of a being or a deity, which often is associated with the word God. This idea that there is someone, a big super someone, that we are looking to have favor from, that is loving us personally and individually, and actually is directing our lives in some form or fashion. And of course, the science of mind recognizes that we are all consciousness arising, and that we actually are in charge of our own lives. And that we're the place where the universe is individualizing and coming to itself and seeing that it is creative, becoming conscious of that creative nature and expressing it in individualized ways, which is anywhere where self-awareness and self-consciousness is arising. And so it can feel as though we spend a lot of time on the creative process and then really focusing on the universal laws and principles. And part of the reason why we do that is because in most of the Western tradition and some of the Eastern tradition, that is the aspect of the infinite that isn't really talked about. What's usually focused on is the deity, the personal nature, the personal relationship with the deity. And so, as we said a few weeks ago when we talked about this, there's something really profound about Meister Eckhart's statement, I pray to God to rid me of God, that I may find God, right? I pray to God to rid me of my childhood need for a parental God, or for this idea that every hair on my head is counted, or that there's a plan for my life, and someone out there, someone more than me, has an idea about that. And to let go of that and to take radical responsibility, to begin to understand the laws and principles, to really begin to recognize that we are the universe doing that and being that as individuals, can really leave us in a place that is cold, and it can be scary, and we can feel sort of cut loose from our anchors, and emotionally can be really challenging. And so in this last section on spirit, Ernest Holmes is addressing this. Now, some of his logic, I think, is specious, and I think it really is based on solipsism, which basically says, well, if I think it's so, therefore it must be so, because I think it's so, right? So it's an interesting, and yet he's trying to address something which is really, really, really important. The personalness of God, or this one infinite spirit, this universal presence. And so part of his argument is human beings have always thought of it as a presence, and have given it a sense of personhood. And because we've always done that, that means that's true about the infinite. I would argue that means that's true, that that's what we need and want. Isn't necessarily true about the infinite. But there is something really important that he says here in the last paragraph. Let's start here at the first paragraph. That they end always in anything that's in italics or in capitals, you really want to pay attention to, right? If it's in italics or capitals. So this last sentence of the first paragraph, we should be very careful in abstracting the principle not to forget the essence. Now, I think this is really important, a really important choice of words. The essence. Not a person, not a deity, not a being, but the essence. And this is the warmth and color of life itself. This is the experience of this life that animates all of creation. And we talk about it, the essential nature. Our essential nature, the essential truth of who we are, the very beingness that is us, which is clearly made in the image and likeness of the beingness, which is the infinite. And it's cloaked in individuality, it's cloaked in a finite personality and a finite form. But there's clearly beingness, which we get from the East. In the Buddhist tradition, right, there is no self, because there's only the one consciousness, the one beingness. And this is a challenging place for us to really break out of our childhood images and our childhood maybe unconscious acceptance of a system of thinking, and to explore this for ourselves. Not to forget the essence of spirit, the essence of life, the very aliveness of life itself. And this impulse, right, otherwise we have to ask ourselves, well, what starts any chain of causation? Right, where's the, where's the person who's standing there hitting the cue ball so that all the billiard balls get moved. And this impulse is this essence that we want to really get a hold of. And so then he goes on to this paragraph that, well, it must be true because it arises in human consciousness, and there's something there. But what I really want to focus on is this last paragraph. Let us not forget that there is inherent necessity for warmth and color. For me, I find that in nature, warmth and color, right? The beauty of the sunset, the beauty of the flowers, the beauty of a meadow, the beauty of the massive fir trees on a hillside, the beauty of this constant movement of the ocean, and how everything plays together. And there's this aliveness that when we are open to it and sit in its presence, that's when we experience oneness, right? We don't experience oneness when we are extrapolating universal principles. When we are extrapolating universal principles, we are working with laws and we are working with our creative process, and we're manifesting things, and we're, right? But it's when we sit in this oceanic experience of connection that we begin to have that deep sense of oneness. And with that comes peace and joy and a sense of love. And for me, there's always this overflowing experience of gratitude. The universe is more than an inexorable law of cause and effect. Personality cannot emerge from a principle which does not contain the inherent possibility of personality. Right? Everything that we are, if we are made in the image and likeness of that one infinite reality, then that too has to be available. The idea that this warmth and color, this essential nature, is personalized, individuated. We use the term individualized expressions of the one. In each one of us, to each one of us, through each one of us, something is personalized. And that which is personalized, I love this sentence, and that which is personalized is personal to its own personification.
Whoa, I love it.
I love this sentence. Like, what does that mean? Okay. And spiritual evolution should make the infinite not more distant, but more intimate. This is why we focus on experiencing and practicing the presence. Not so much that we are to be present to what's going on, although that is a deep spiritual practice, but the practice of the presence is the ability to perceive the essential nature, the essential presence of this essence, which we call spirit, which we ascribe love and peace, and which, when we are held in that engagement, in that embrace, we experience as oneness. And so this is the other side of being rid of God. I pray to God to be rid of God that I may find God. Right? We want to develop an entirely new experience of oneness. Not I am one with, not I have a relationship with, but that it is, in fact, there and here simultaneously. And there is a moment in our deepest mystical experiences, our deepest moments of connection, where that oneness becomes palpable to us. And that's what we're leaning into, the experience of the presence and the ability to perceive it in art, in nature, in another human being, in the infinite totality when we sit in meditation or walk in the woods or do an artistic endeavor or whatever allows us to expand outside of the limitations of our human consciousness. When we begin to resonate at that deeper level. And so that which is personalized is personal to its own personification. And so however you describe or experience it is the way that you personalize it. So for some people, right, that is a being, a guru, a deity. For others, it's nature. For others, it's just the deep connection in love, in life with others, right? Do you see, I love this sentence. This really allows us, invites us to find our own expression and experience of this sense of the essence of life as being palpably present. And we describe it as love because it is always moving for life. And so in that sense, yes, actually there is something out there that has a plan for your life. And that plan is to express and experience life to its fullest. That is the plan. Your desire and your willingness to express and experience this life is 100% supported. So I don't know how much more love or let me count the hairs on your head. What do you need, right? Our language ascribes to it this personality because it helps us talk about it. But whatever way it is that we have this deep, palpable experience, not just a relationship, not just with the oneness, but this, yeah. And then we can walk around and we can say we're rocked in the arms of God. We're cradled in the infinite reality. We are utterly loved and supported. Everything we need is already present. We just have to turn to it and allow it to flow through us. That's the essence that becomes personal to us. And then there's that place, which Emerson says, where there's no bar or window, where the individual ends and the universal begins. We recognize that it's this continuity that is forever present. And whatever we need to do, we talk about this a lot, whatever metaphor, whatever image, whatever experience we cloak it in, helps us experience this personally, our own personal experience of it. And of course, that's the other piece that I love about it, is because my description, my experience of it, the way in which I describe it is maybe different than yours, but not any righter or wronger. Do you see? Because it's personal, it's that which is personalized is personal to its own personification. We're going to personalize it in the way that is made up of our sensibilities, our intuition, our experience. I mean, this is where the Hindus really, they have a lot going on, I'll tell you that. You understand, in Hinduism, there's this idea that there are really 4 paths to the experience of the divine, to be in this oneness. Raja Yoga is the royal road of meditation. Karma Yoga is the road of service. Think Mother Teresa and people like that. Jnana Yoga is the path of the intellect, which think of the Jesuits, Ernest Holmes, right? And Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the path of devotion, to be devoted to, right? People who are, who relate to Jesus, to Amma, to the Buddha, to to a guru, right? That's bhakti yoga, the path of devotion, to devote oneself to following a particular essential experience of the divine that is personal. Do you see? It's personal because it's personalized through us. So the other side of moving through the release of the old idea, going through this work with the laws and the principles, the other side of that opens us to the mystical experience of oneness, because we're not trapped in old ideas, old concepts that may limit our experience of oneness. I don't know what else to say about that. So that means... So let's talk about it. So how do you experience the infinite as personalized to you personally? And what is your joy about this or your struggle with it? So we have a comment in the room, but first we're going to say hello to Ryan, and we're going to say hello to everybody out there online and see what's going on out there.
Well, thank you, Dr. Petra, and good morning to you and everybody that's joining us online and here on campus. And we're grateful that you're in community with us today. Just heads up to the folks that I'm waving at right now, if you can see my hand. It means you will be on camera if you have a question or comment. If you would like to not be on camera, you can always move over here to the other side to make yourself feel a little bit more comfortable. And for the folks online, we can't see you anyways.
But we can
hear you, especially inside of Zoom. And we encourage you to hit that raise your hand button located down below on the bottom of your screen. And that way I can call you into the room. And welcome to all the people all over the globe who are watching us on Facebook Live. We love to hear and see from you as well. And you can always feel free to pitch your question or comment inside of the chat, as well as those who are on Zoom. And I can bring those questions into the room as well. And I always like to remind folks that those questions that are in the chat remain anonymous, so that way we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. And so I see we have Darlene here in the room, and then we have Shauna here online. So let's go to Darlene first.
Hello.
Hi, Darlene.
I'm Darlene. I had to hurry up and raise my hand before I forget what I had to say. This week, in thinking about this just gives me goosebumps, because it came to me that it's not enough to be self-aware or just conscious of my consciousness, and that I had to begin, and it was like, I've got to let go of, it is when the word God became too small.
Yeah.
And I felt that I've got to now have the experience of what I am conscious of, and what does that look like. And that was very scary to me, because it meant that I have to take the responsibility to now define, create, and move in it.
Yes. And it's really powerful to recognize that perhaps the idea of God is actually too small, because it has shape and definition. And then to invite that larger experience of whatever that is. And it's a little scary, isn't it?
It is, because I was in conversations with people. I was in conversations.
Yes, but she has one more thing to say. We'll come back to you, Ross.
I was in conversations with people yesterday who we were having that God conversation, and here I was feeling it's too small, but yet being in that to honor all life.
Yes.
You know, is really tricky, because I was trying I didn't want to be offensive. And to honor where they were, because I've been there, and here I am on, moving through this, and it was just weird. It was really weird, but it's all. I'm learning to look at it as it's all life, and that we can honor all people's decisions as to where they are, because I was there.
Right.
at one point.
Absolutely.
And I flip. Part of me is still unaware of parts of me is still there.
Yes.
And so it's all okay now. It's flow. And so I said, to myself that darling, you have to be okay with flow. Even though you feel finite in this body, something is flowing. And
Exactly.
that's what I want to have, the experience of,
Yes.
and not feel irritated by this box that I see, but tap into the flow of life that is happening.
Yes.
It doesn't have to make
Yes,
sense.
I love that. It's beautiful. And I think I always find it so interesting how concerned we are about offending people by sharing our own experience of the divine. And I really invite all of us to just let go of that. Nobody is worried about offending us, on the one hand. And on the other hand, if you think about speaking to a Buddhist who talks about the Brahma and the Atma, and there is no essential self, there's no concern about offending us or offending someone. It's just the sharing of that particular point of view, that particular path. And so to be confident to share our path is not to say, and you have to follow it, or you're wrong if you don't, but to just be saying, this is my exploration, this is my experience. And so good for you for having that conversation, right? And being willing to just say, wow, I'm in the exploration of all of this. And we can do that without dishonoring anybody, right? Because we're not better than, we're just different. Everybody has their different expression and experience of it, which is why all the mystics, they all talk about the same thing, but they all cloak it in different language, right? And so, yeah, but it's an interesting idea. Sometimes people will say, God is the biggest word I have for this infinite, and then sometimes the word God is too small. Right, that's beautiful. Thanks, Darlene. All right, we're going to go out here online.
Yeah, I see Shauna. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, Shauna, and join us?
Good morning, Shauna.
Good morning, Dr. Petra and everybody. I love this section. The first question I have is, what were the 4 Hindu paths? Service, intellectual, devotion,
And meditation.
meditation. I don't know how I forgot that. So I love this section because, I was raised in a very traditional church and moved away from that very traditional church to, other churches and on my path to, and now I'm at CSL. And, but I have friends and families in those original churches that I love and I respect, and I love and treasure what all of those faith traditions gave me and made me who I am today. And because I've worked internationally so long, I have dear friends and family from many different faith traditions. And I've always loved this section because I've never wanted to make anybody wrong. Mm-hmm. And yet I have friends and families who love to talk about their faith. And sometimes, particularly those friends or family that follow the path more of devotion, they struggle with the fact that I don't follow their path of devotion. And they struggle because they don't understand my path, or they worry about me on their path because they still have that belief that there may be one path. And sometimes, and yet they want to be in conversations with me. And sometimes I find it difficult to express myself and my path in a way that they can understand, and in a way even that can reduce their anxiety about me in some ways, right? And it's something I want to be able to do better just because I love them. Do you have?
Yes. Yeah.
know what I'm talking about?
I
It's
do.
it's not about offense. It's never about offense. It's about, yeah, I'm not expressing it very well, but I
No,
think
you're
you
expressing
understand.
it beautifully.
Yeah.
And the challenge, of course, is that you are speaking to people who believe that there's only one way.
Right.
And there really isn't anything you can do about that.
Right. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so whether or not they understand you is really on them. Truthfully, it's really on them. If they're seeking to understand what you have to say, there's nothing about how you speak that's going to guarantee that they're going to understand you.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree, but I still want to be somehow I want to be a better bridge. Sometimes I feel like I don't have the words to bridge how we see how we personalize our divine. Right.
Yeah, and it's yeah, I totally get it. I had already been a minister for 20 years, and my mother was still in tears. She would tell me, I'm praying for you to meet Jesus, because I'm going to go to heaven and you're not going to be there.
Yeah, my dad didn't quite say that, but I know he always prayed for my return. Right. And one of the ways I bridged it, and I do bridge it, is that when I go and visit, my loved ones, I'll go to their church with them, right? Because it's all one to me. It's a way of honoring and being present in their faith and sharing with them and loving them. And I know it's a gift I give to them.
Yes, it's definitely a gift that you are giving to them, and it's a beautiful statement of love, right? It really is. It's unfortunate that it doesn't get returned. And there's nothing you can do about that. It's always going to be one-sided. And that's the thing that I had to realize with my mother. And so two things. One, she agreed that she would stop talking about Jesus, and I agreed that I would use the language of spirit. And so we found our connection in the language of spirit. And the other thing is, I simply began sharing, instead of trying to meet her on her ground, which was not possible, I simply began sharing, and we would, over coffee, and I would say, well, in my spiritual practice this morning, I did my meditation, and then I really did my spiritual work around blah, 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 this and that. And I really, and I just, so the other piece of it, Shauna, is that your life is your message. Right? I agree. Yeah, and there are, unfortunately, no magic words to shift that. It is, you are loving them, you are honoring them, you are sharing as you can, you are, participating in whatever their faith tradition is. And I don't really know how you would do it differently, other than to continue just to allow your life and your love to be your message.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's challenging. This is a very challenging thing. And we're seeing it nationally, we're seeing it internationally. What happens when there is an idea, which we have embraced in the West, that there is only one way? And that becomes the critical, that's the critical piece. And it's harder to bridge. There's just no question about it. But Shauna, I think you're doing an amazing job bridging it. And it does. It's challenging. It's sad. It can be difficult. And yet we just keep showing up with love and just keep speaking from your practice. You don't even have to speak from your beliefs. Speak from your practice. How are you living it? And that also can help bridge the gap a little bit. All right, we got two comments here in the room.
This is Ross.
Hi, Ross.
And I have a number of pieces that just don't fit. And it's left me really feeling almost, I don't say confused, but maybe that's the right word. I had the belief that anything that I learned went into some reservoir of knowledge in the sky. Okay. And I see pieces where a development happens and then it happens 3 other places in the world at the same time. Going, how? Then I'm going, maybe what I experience is just all about me. And it isn't, and the only way I can share it is to share it with other individual people, as opposed to it goes someplace where everyone gets access to it. And I just don't know what to do with that. I don't know which position. Does that make any sense?
Sure, of course, absolutely. So the answer. So one of the ways to think about it is that if it's all one, then it's all one consciousness, and therefore it's all one mind. And so there is something to be said about this infinite mind into which we are all thinking. And yes, it does actually, I don't know if it goes somewhere in the sky, but someplace, right? Yeah. But that intangible, non-physical aspect of reality, there is, in the science of mind, we call it universal subjective mind. And it is that shared collective unconscious or shared collective consciousness. In biology, they call it the morphogenetic field. In quantum physics, it's called the quantum field, right? And that we do actually all share in it. And that's what it means to have a collective shift in consciousness. Enough people have thought something new that collective shift has happened in consciousness. And so that's true. And it's also true that individual engagement is super important. So the position is both and, not either or. Oh, no. I know, don't you just hate that? Everything in science and mind resolves itself into a paradox because there is the constant dual, I love what Ernest Holmes calls it, the dual unity. The dual unity, love and law, the dual unity of being and becoming, right? And we think of spirituality as, well, it's absolute, therefore it's not the physical world, or it's not these, right? So the dual unity, oneness means all of it, the wholeness of it. And so we need to be operating both at the universal absolute level and at the same time working at the individual relative level. And what we want to do is get facile between flipping between the two. What's called for in the moment? Am I doing my spiritual treatment and I'm working at the absolute and I'm being causal, or am I in an engagement with somebody that I love and now I'm being very personal and I'm engaging with them as, you know, human to human, but also, you know, spirit to spirit, soul to soul, right? It's a very individualized experience, and both of these things are happening all the time simultaneously. So the mistake we make is to try to live all on one side or the other. So thank you, Ross. It's a great question. Back there, Francisco.
Hello, thank you for sharing everything. I really like the part you mentioned regarding how God even falls short as a name to explain everything. And that reminds me a lot of this Kabbalistic concept of how at the beginning in Genesis, one interpretation is not that God created heaven and earth, but that in the beginning, God was created. And the meaning of that, you might be thinking, like, how can God be created? But the meaning of that is that the word God, the concept that we made of God, is in reality falls short of what divinity or the infinite actually is. Right. Because in Kabbalah, God is identified with Ein Sof, which means without limit, the boundless. And just our ideas of whatever we can talk about it just falls very short of the reality itself. And I think that idea is really beautiful. And when I really think about it and meditate on it and everything we know about our physical makeup and the mysteries of consciousness, I just get this experience of unity with everything, with the past and the future become one, and I don't know. Sometimes I just get goosebumps.
Yes.
But it's a very sudden moment. You cannot keep it in a very firm grasp.
Yes.
It comes and goes.
It comes and goes.
Yeah.
Because we're touching into that. That's that mystical experience, and we can have it. Absolutely. Don't ever believe that you can't have it because we're limited beings. We're not. What we can't do is always talk about it. Because the minute we're using language, we're immediately trying to, and we're using metaphors and we're using spatial, concepts, because we have to talk about it somehow. Otherwise, we just have to, like, could you just be in my brain and experience what I just experienced, and then you'll know what I'm talking about, right? And so thank you so much. It is that infinite reality. And one of the things that I say to people, I can remember years ago, I spent an entire year, I am not kidding you, I spent an entire year contemplating infinity and oneness because I could not bend my mind around it. And yet over and over and over and over again, this is a seminal idea in the science of mind. And I wanted to break out of other concepts and to really have the experience of it. And so that was my sole focus of my meditation for a year, to begin to play around with, contemplate it, think about it, walk around looking for it, see where I could perceive it. It was like that was because I needed to expand beyond the shape and definitions of things. I've been talking about this stuff for a long time. And it's still hard to talk about because our language immediately begins to circumscribe it. But we have to talk about it. That's why the Buddhists say, don't look at the finger pointing at the moon, look at the moon, but the finger is still useful to show you which direction to look, right? That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. We're not trying to put it in a box. We're not saying, oh, we know everything there is to know about it, but we can start describing our experiences. Yeah, beautiful, thank you. Okay, online and then Jerry here.
All right, we'll see. Just keep in mind, we want to keep laser focused because we only have a few minutes here. Connie, would you go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Good morning, Connie.
Good morning. Good to be here. Thank you. This is a fascinating discussion because I'm learning through the support and help of CSL, which I've been going to for years, how to honor other people's paths and mine too, and not judge. And I think about what the Dalai Lama says, love is the absence of judgment. But it's really, really, really happening. I used to think that a person who was extraordinarily overweight, oh gee, what are they doing? They're all fouled up and all that. I don't do that anymore. I just wish them the best and everybody the best. And it's a transformation for me, and I'm very grateful. That's it.
Beautiful. Thanks, Connie. Absolutely. And, I think that speaks volumes. And going back, Shauna, to your question and your comment, I think that was the thing that hurt the most from my mom, is that she didn't love me enough to not judge my path. And that was hurtful. And the only thing I knew to do was to love her as unconditionally as I could, and to see that her path really had worked for her. She came late to her path. It meant a lot to her. It gave her a lot of comfort. She was utterly unafraid to die. And I could see that it was really serving her. And I had no trouble honoring that. And I realized that if she wanted to pray for me to meet Jesus, really what she was praying for was for me to be spiritually enlightened. And I thought, well, hell, I'm good with that. Right? You just keep on praying for that, Mom. So that it was that loss of judgment. And when I lost my judgment and was more, and I was, Yeah, but it is. That is, to me, is really the epitome of love, is that ability to unconditionally accept that everybody has their own path and that it's theirs. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? It's theirs. So beautiful. All right, last comment, Jerry.
I'm Jerry, and this week and last week have been especially, I guess, esoteric to me. And so I think you mentioned a few weeks back that CSL is open at the top. So I hope I'm getting the right understanding of that to mean I can avoid feel like I'm missing out if I don't necessarily understand everything that they're saying now, that just I'll get something out of it now, and later on I'll also maybe get something different out of it.
Absolutely, which is why we keep going over this textbook. We're on our 6th time in the last 20 years. We're on our 6th time, and you will get something. I mean, sometimes I read it and I think, wait, did they rewrite the book? I don't remember seeing that sentence. Or I get a whole nother understanding of it, right? And that's why we go deeper and deeper and deeper into it, and we will understand and we will experience it at deeper and deeper levels. There's so much mysticism in the science of mind that can be really challenging to get a hold of because it's so hard to talk about. So just keep coming, and get what you get, take whatever is exactly right for you at the moment, and a year or 2 or 3 or 5, a whole nother thing will be exactly right. And that's why we have so many classes. This is why we have such a deep education program. You want to understand more about this, grapple with it more, get into classes. This is where we really dive in. We have experiences. We have lots of experientials, opportunities to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So we have amazing classes coming up, CSLDallas.org/education. There's a course schedule. There's all descriptions of our classes. And it is to keep this process continually moving. But simply listening and having a few comments is fantastic, but there's so much more richness that we can do when we're in our courses together. So please, please, please do look. And I tell people you need to be in at least 1 course a year, if not 2. Minimum 1 course a year, because it keeps us working, right? It keeps us going a little deeper. One little concept can shift everything. One moment of experience and awareness can open something up. And our classes are where we will have that experience. So, fabulous. Next week we are, in fact, yay, drum roll please, starting a new chapter. We're going to start the chapter on soul and wait until we get into that chapter and his co-opting of the use of the word soul, which is so we'll see you when we see you next week or in our celebration here. We're going to be doing the basic principles of the science of mind the whole month of January. In our celebration, we're going to be talking about the 10 principles and the 8 practices this Sunday and next. Don't miss it. Bye for now.
All right.